Alex Dominguez of Annihilator. Welcome to 69 Faces of Rock. How are you doing today?
I am doing well. Thank you for asking.
Um, you got a new album, Death is Calling. It just came out. What can you tell me about the writing and recording of this record?
Well, it took almost 3 years, maybe four, to get it all together. I had to in 2018. I decided to find new members to write a new album, so that took a while, and then some behind the scenes stuff that also took a while.
We'll get to
And
that.
when it all came together, we wrote 7 songs. In I want to say a span of I guess 2 years maybe. I
Mhm.
mean, it could have been done a lot quicker. What also held us up to is we had found some members. The whole album was written, but it we found some members, a drummer Daniel Garcia and our guitar player Fernando Salinas. They were like people we were going to use for just live situations. If we had shows that were going to come up, pretty quick. So we tried teaching them the new stuff, but they were in other bands too, and their priorities with their bands came first. I made sure that everybody who's in my band, if they're in another band, it's like do your thing, man. My thing can just kick back. You guys do your thing. So long story short, it was taking them a while to learn the songs, not because they were hard or anything, it was just the time frame that JD De La Rosa, who's our guitar player, ended up recording the drum tracks and the guitar tracks because he plays both. He's a
Mhm.
drummer and a guitar player. So when you listen to the album, you'll hear JD is on guitar and JD's on drums. So basically, we wrote 7 songs, and I think comes in under like 33 minutes or something like that. And if you like Dark Angel speed, and if you like Pestilence speed, that's where it falls under. If you give it a listen.
How would you describe the new members of the band? What are these guys like?
They know their metal. They're a little younger than I am. I'm the oldest member in the band, but very talented. I mean, I can't say enough about JD. JD's phenomenal on guitar. I give him ideas. I like, hey, I like this song to be this way and that way, and he sees, he kind of says, okay, and then about a week later, he would send me something, and it's like, wow, just exactly what I just, kind of described the way I wanted the song to be.
Mhm.
So he's very talented, has an excellent ear. In fact, he has a home studio, and we recorded the album at his house, and he produced it and he mixed it. So he's an all around. I mean, he's just phenomenal. He comes from a band called Severance, which is a technical death metal band from Texas. And he spent some time with them. And when I asked him to join Annihilator, he had just finished with them. So, and he had been writing death metal for like, I want to say, I don't know, like 10 years with that band. So it was refreshing. He told me to write a thrash album because, that's what he loves. So that's JD. I mean, like I said, I can't talk enough about JD. He's very talented. He's a drummer and he's also a guitar player, great lead player. Our vocalist, Tony Gomez, I used to play with him in a couple of bands. When I lived in Corpus Christi, I live in Houston now, Houston, Texas. And when I lived in Corpus Christi, Texas, me and Tony did some things together, and I, I love Tony's stage presence. I mean, he's real commanding on stage, and his vocals are like really powerful and fit well with Annihilator. And real quick, uh, real quick story: JD and Tony have filled in when I had members that about 4 or 5 years ago, before I was even thinking about getting them in the band. We had lost our drummer, and I had to ask JD if he could fill in for some shows that we had, which he did on drums. And then I had our guitar player, one of our guitar players in 2017 couldn't get a passport to get into Mexico to play because we had a show in Mexico City. So JD filled in on guitar for that show.
Mhm.
and Tony has filled in a few times here and there. With just when our singer couldn't make it, I would go to Tony and Tony. So they're both familiar with the band. They both know the history of the band, everything like that. So those two guys together are phenomenal.
Mhm.
And the two newest members we got, which were the people I talked about in the beginning, which was Daniel Garcia, which is a drummer. He's the new drummer, and Fernando Salinas. Well, they all live in JD's like city vicinity, so they've all played in different bands or they play together. In fact, Fernando used to play with JD and Severance too. So when JD left, Fernando left. So when I asked JD a year later, JD asked Fernando to come join us. So they're all talented people. I mean, they all have like different projects on their own bands and stuff. And I mean, I could have chosen really, really talented and mellow musicians. They're not crazy. They're not wild. They're not drunks. They're not. These dudes are level headed and real down to earth. So that makes it easy to work with. Makes it easy, to work with them.
Have you played any shows since the album came out?
We've done two shows, not since the album came out. We did two before. The album just dropped in October, the
Mhm.
22nd. And we just got word a couple of days ago. Excuse me. We just got word a couple of days ago that Dave Rotten from Spain, Extreme Music, just now shipped us our packages of albums and CDs and cassettes. So we haven't got them yet. So no, I don't think we'll start playing until I'm thinking like maybe the middle of 2025. Somewhere around there.
Will you plan any shows outside of Texas? Because I mean, in the past, you never really quite toured. You know.
Yeah. We When we released the last CD we had, which was Rise to Supremacy on Extreme also, we ended up doing a show in New York, which was a festival called Rage to Armageddon.
Oh
And
yes,
it, we,
with that.
yeah, we ended up playing that festival. And then we ended up going to Milwaukee and doing it was a spring bash. Randy
Yes,
Kessler,
that makes sense.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Randy Kessler is the one that threw it. He invited us to go play, so we did that. And then we toured all over Texas. We didn't venture out at the time. We just did a lot of our touring throughout Texas and just festival here, festival there, stuff like that. With this one, I don't know if I mean, we're on such a small label to try to hop on a tour. I don't know. We could create our own tour, but I mean, there's uh, really not, it would be hard to fund it to stay on the road. In other words, I don't know how many people would, because we're really underground.
Mhm.
We know certain spots that we can play that will draw people. So, like maybe, for instance, I'd like to do two shows on the West Coast, and Anialator's never been to the West Coast. So jump on a festival in the West Coast and maybe do something there with them. With the promoters there, or even go back to New York or Florida, or do a couple of shows here and there. You know, there's Louisiana's next door to us. There's New Mexico, Oklahoma, Ohio, Chicago. I mean,
It makes
just
sense. Yeah,
go.
I
Yeah,
think
just go and come.
the festival circuit probably would be a great bet. We spoke about the new lineup. So what happened to the old lineup? You said there were some inconsistencies there.
Yeah, the old lineup. Things just when COVID came, everything came to a stop. Right there, you couldn't go play in clubs or anything like that. And I had been with these guys had been with me since 2015, and I just thought it was just time for just some new blood. I just decided I was going to go in I wanted to take the band back to its roots. And I think with the Rise to Supremacy, I think we lost our identity. It kind of sounded too modern and polished
Mhm.
for what Annihilator used to put out. And not knocking the other guy's talent or anything. It's just we ended up tuning down really low the guitars, and with this album, Death is Calling, we went back up on tuning. We didn't tune so low. We went back up to almost like standard tuning to write these songs. So it was just, it seems like every Annihilator album had a different member
Hmm.
or members, as it goes along. And it's just, kind of like that. It's just, whoever's in the band at the time and we get, we're recording and they're in the band at the time. So,
That makes sense. Let's talk some history. So when did Annihilator initially form?
it initially formed in 1980, 85, 86, if I remember right. 85, 86. I had just left the band Devastation, that was the Texas Devastation that used to be on Combat.
Okay.
I had left the band and I wanted to start my own band. So uh, it was around 85, 86, something like that. I think our first demo was in end of 86. The Annihilator demo was like at the end of 86, maybe the beginning of 90s, 87. Yeah, it was 86, 87.
Tell me about the band name. It's very unusual spelling, isn't
Yeah, that's due to me being a bad speller. Uh,
it?
I guess I'm lucky. I am a bad speller because if I had spelled it the right way, I'm sure we wouldn't have been doing this interview right now. Because I mean, I would have probably got served a cease and desist, or I would have just walked away from it if it, we had, because there is a band from Canada.
Yes.
The pronunciation is the same as ours, Annihilator. We spell it different, but they spell it the right way, but you pronounce it the same. And back in when I was in 85, 86, when I was coming up with a band name, there's no Google, there's no internet. If there is, I mean, there's no internet, there's no way to search to see if there's another band with the same name back then. I mean, I'm wearing a shirt right now. I don't know if you can see it, Slayer
Oh, yeah.
versus Slayer.
Hmm.
You know, California Slayer, San Antonio had a Slayer. There was a Devastation from Chicago. There's a
Right.
Devastation from Texas. So back then, it was really hard to find out exactly who had your name or who didn't have your name. So one day I was at work and I was in a rush, so I just put down, hey, you know what? Annihilator sounds like a cool band. So I spelt it the way I spelt it on a piece of paper, and I left it like that. When it came time to do the band name, I told everybody it's Annihilator. Like, oh, okay. Everybody's like, that's different. And I was, yeah. And then these guys didn't tell me anything. My sister's the one that came up to me and told me, hey, dumbass, you spelled it wrong. What do you mean? She showed it to me in the dictionary. I'm like, oh shit. I was like, well, I just leave it like that. That's all right. So my bad spelling is what caused me to spell it the way I did, and we just kept it until like I want to say around 88, 89 is when we found out there was one from Canada. When I started seeing like black and white zines that I would collect, I see like, oh shit, there's an Annihilator from Canada. Oh shit. And then next thing you know it, these dudes are signed to like Roadrunner or Road Racer at the time. And uh, they put out an album, and that's a huge label versus Wild Rag Records, what we're on. So like in 1990, I kind of decided to everybody thinks I changed the band name from Annihilator to Sufferance, which isn't the case. I ended up putting Annihilator just on hiatus, just kind of like, I'll put it on hold to see what happens. And if I wanted to, me personally wanted to further my career, like I wanted to get signed like every other, everybody else in a band. I wanted to tour. I wanted to do all those things that bands do. I couldn't do it with the Annihilator name. There would be no way, because I mean, the Canadian Annihilator, they were touring with like Judas Priest and uh, Pantera and stuff like that, and it just I realized that record companies wouldn't touch us because even though it's spelled different, it's pronounced the same. It was just a dead end for us. So to further my career, I ended up putting it on hold, and then in 1990, I decided to do create another band called Sufferance, and then that went on for like 10 years. I was with them, and then got out of that, then did different variations, different bands. And, I kept on playing with just different bands because, I mean, I love playing live and I love being in a band. So I would just, start a band here for a little bit, jump into another band, this and that, until 2015 when I started noticing there was some interest in Annihilator. Actually, in 2013 when I was late to join Facebook. So when I joined Facebook, I would see people posting flyers, and I would see people talking about the EPs. And I went on, I would go on a little bit before that. I would go on to eBay, and I would see our EPs being sold, people buying them. And when I got on Facebook, people would send me messages like, "Hey man, I discovered Annihilator through my dad's record collection," or older dudes like, "I was there when y'all played with like Blood Cum," or "I was there when y'all did Devastation and Rotting Corpse," and so that sparked interest. To fast forward to 2015, and that's when I restarted the band up again, and up until where we are right now. So.
So how did you go from being a demo band to getting signed by Wild Rag Records and releasing that first EP?
I guess it was just a matter of luck. I had just gotten out of Devastation, and I came up with the name first. And I went to look for members. I found the members, and then we just, in a short span of time, I think we hadn't been together more than 2 or 3 months. We wrote 4 songs, and we ended up recording them in this guy's studio. It was Code Studio. It was a reel-to-reel tape with like microphones. Really, I mean, it was really primitive because I mean, this is like 1986, 85, something like that. And we ended up recording 4 songs and releasing the demo. So the time we formed to the time we released the demo, it was like 6 months. That's how long it was. Just 6 months. We were together, and we already released this demo. And like I said, I used to collect zines, all kinds of zines. Even if they were outdated, I'd still buy them and read them. And back of those zines, those black and white, copy and paste zines, there's usually ads for record labels and stuff. So I started sending our demo out to different labels, and I sent one to Wild Rags. And I remember like 2 months later, I came home from work. I was living with my parents. I came home from work, and my mom said, "Somebody from California called you. Here's the number." So, "Richard from Wild Rags." I was like, "What?" So I called the guy up, and he's like, "Hey man, got your all's demo. I dug it. Let's talk. I have a record label. I put out EPs and stuff like that, and blah 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 blah. And I'll send you a contract, and let's do it." So that's how we got signed to Wild Rag Records. I just saw an ad in the back of a magazine, sent our demo with a bio and some pictures or whatever, and it got his attention, and that's how we ended up being on that label.
How did that EP do for you?
It did well. I mean, for not having any kind of social media back then, or not having any no email, no, just nothing. It was just you mailed what you were going to send to a magazine or send to a radio station or whatever, a college radio station. You just mailed it through the mail. So Richard C. from Wild Rags was really, really good at just spreading out his albums. I mean, he knew how to network. He just knew how to get it out there. So when the EP was released, I was getting mail from Japan. I was getting mail from Switzerland. I was getting mail from like Peru, Colombia, Mexico, the United States, and with people like writing to me, sending me copies of ads that they had seen in magazines that Richard would take out for Wild Rags. And he was just like really, really great at just spreading it out. So word got around, and I believe, don't quote me on it, I think like the first EP we put out, I think he only made like maybe 1,500 copies.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second EP we put out, which was on colored vinyl, and for some reason, I don't know why, I can't think back to it. We never named our EPs. That's the
right.
thing. It was like, we never did it. How hard, and I think back, I'm like, God damn, how hard is it just to say, we're going to call it Kill Everyone or whatever, and we never named our EPs. We just sent it in like that, and it's just Annialator. And then the next release was Annialator, so they start saying Annialator 2. That's what they call it, Annialator 2. But I don't know. I can't recall why we never named our EPs, but Usually we will describe it like, oh, the white cover, so we call it the white album. And then the second one was colored vinyl. He made 1,000 red vinyl records, and we call it the red release, right? The red record because it was red vinyl but had no titles. Later on, I found out he only made 1,000. He had told me one time when we had talked that he goes, once these run out, he said, then I'll make a different color. But he said, I don't think we can run through 1,000 of them. And I was like, oh, okay, we'll get close, or we'll sell what we can. And I was like, okay, that's fine. I wasn't expecting anything out of it. So fast forward to maybe 13, 14 years, I was off the label, or we had just done away with an Annihilator. I was on eBay and I'm just searching Annihilator stuff, and all of a sudden I see from Switzerland some dude selling the second EP but in blue vinyl, and I never knew it got released in blue vinyl. I was like, blue vinyl. So of course I bought it for myself. I spent like $75 on it just because I didn't have it. I wanted to collect it, and I bought it, and I was always curious. And I guess I don't know how many colors are really out there. As far as I know, there's a red, 1,000 red copies. I don't know how many blue he released. And then somebody told me, a friend of mine that was on tour with one of these bands he went on tour with, he was helping them out. He was in Germany. He said he could have sworn he saw a clear one.
Hmm.
So I'm not sure. But as far as I know, there's two different versions, but a blue and a. Hope I answered the question. I think I got lost going into describing the colors of
I
the
know.
like piece.
How would you compare musically?
What, the old stuff or the new stuff?
Both EPs.
Uh, Kind of the first one is kind of like, I want to say Slayer on speed, just real fast, kind of Dark Angel, just really riff after riff after riff. That was the first one. The second one we slowed down quite a bit, and it sounds more, to me it sounded more hardcore, more a little bit thrash. I hate using the word thrashcore, but thrash and hardcore kind of mixed on the second one. We kind of went a different direction. And then the Rise to Supremacy, we went back up, and it kind of sounded like too modern. And I would say like modern meaning like maybe like newer Exodus, I guess, sound wise and music wise. I mean, it got compared to, like, there was some songs that sounded like Creator. There was some songs that sounded, just that one is kind of it's kind of it, to me. It reminds me. See, some songs remind me of like death metal with a little bit of like black metal mixed in it. With some of the riffs around me, kind of black metalish riffs and stuff. And then some of it, like I said, there was that Creator feel to it, or that Exodus feel to it, or later Exodus. So
That makes sense.
and this one, the newest one, like I said, it's just the review. I mean, what the reviews have been saying, I've seen somebody describe it like pestilence. I've seen somebody describe it as Dark Angel, Demolition Hammer. So.
What was Wild Rag Records to work with like?
They were easy to get a hold of because it was just one guy that ran the record, and he had a record store in California. So anytime I called, I was able to get a hold of him. That wasn't a problem, and they were pretty easy to work with. I mean, little known fact, we were actually the first band on his label to have a colored jacket sleeve. Everything he released before us was this thing called the Hardcore series, which was a silver and black. It was like silver lettering on a black sleeve with a hole punched out in the middle where you could see the actual, like, I guess the sticker for the album in the middle that tell you all the songs. And he called it like the Hardcore series. So he did that with, I think it was Blood Cum, a band called Resistant Militia. I can't remember who else was on that series. So one day when he signed us, before we put it out, I asked him, hey, would it be too hard to do color? And too expensive to do color? He goes, what are you talking about? I said, just the white cover, and then the Annihilator logo in black, and in the back, a white cover with a a skull like on the hanging on the tip of Texas on the Panhandle. There's a skull and it has blood dripping down on it. Just red, black, and white. And he went and looked it up, and I guess it was affordable because we ended up putting it out like that. So we were like the first band to actually get color on his
Yeah.
label.
Wild Rag also was a magazine. In fact, I wrote
Mhm.
for it years ago.
Yeah, that's how he we used to send this. It was like a magazine slash newsletter that he would send it to everyone, every magazine, every radio station, every person who wrote to him. He'd send like a stack of them to pass out to their friends and stuff like that. Yeah, he had that going for him too.
Definitely. So shortly after the second EP, the band broke up. Was there like any initial spark as to why you didn't want to continue anymore?
After the second EP, well, we like I said, I put the band on hiatus because I knew we couldn't. That by then, I had found out there was another band, like I said, from
Yeah.
Canada. They had the same pronunciation, different
That
spelling,
makes
but
sense. Yeah.
they were on a huge label. So I ended up just kind of putting that on hiatus and just leaving that where it was at in 1990 and moving on forward with a different band.
So somewhere down the line, there's a really cool compilation, Mission of Death, that combines all of your recordings, the EPs and the demos. Do you think when that came out, that allowed a lot of new fans to kind of discover the band?
I believe so. I mean, uh, for one, it was released on CD.
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
know, it wasn't like released on an album where only a certain, I guess, a certain how can I say it? Certain person that collects vinyl would buy it versus someone that still would listen to CDs or it's easier to have a CD player than I guess to find a record player or it just depend on what you prefer. But yes, I think it did help us find newer people and it did help us newer fans and I think it did help us with letting people know that our history of where we started from, how it started, in what year these came out, and yeah, I think it was a big help that he did that. It was I was lucky to have been introduced to Dave Rotten from Extreme because he was when I met him and we talked, he had been a fan of the band for a long time, so it made it easy for him to just release the stuff he's been releasing.
That
Real
helps.
cool guy, and it's great to work with him because I mean, I can't talk enough about him. He is just knowledgeable. He's been in the underground scene for so long. He knows a lot of people. He knows what to do. He knows how to handle his label. He knows, so it's a great label to be on, Extreme Music.
Outstanding. Well, you have a new album out. You have a lot of great history that we just went over. What are your future plans?
I'm hoping to get the band to Europe. I'd love to go play Germany, like Keep It True. I'd love to go, do something in, just a different country. I mean, I think our fan base was a lot stronger in the 80s in Europe than it was in the States because he dealt with a lot of European magazines and people that lived in Europe. So I'm not saying we're huge or anything, but I mean, if you could throw us on a festival in Europe between, bands that are known, we can hold our own, definitely hold our own. So that's what I'm hoping to do is get the band to Europe. I mean, even if it's for a couple of festivals, that's more than I can ask for.
Fantastic. I hope it's going to happen for you. Now, finally, being in a low budget band like this is not always easy. There are a lot of ups and downs, probably a lot of moments that would be discouraging. So, what kept you going throughout all these years?
My love for music, man. My love for music. The first time I discovered, not counting the rock stuff because the rock stuff I liked it, but I wasn't like I was like Led Zeppelin and the Sticks and I started getting into heavier stuff when I was younger, like UFO, Black Sabbath, and then it went from Motorhead, Tank, and it just kept on going. It's just, I don't know, man. It's just, I guess it's in my blood. It's in your veins. It's hard to walk away once you've played in front of, whether it's 10 people or you've played in front of like, 5,000 people or whatever. It just sticks with you, and it's really, I don't want to, I hate comparing it to that, but it's like kicking, I guess if you're addicted to something really bad, like alcohol or drugs, trying to quit, sometimes they say is really hard. Well, with a band, it is, even through ups and downs, there's times when I'm like, man, you know what? I should just give it up, man. Or, it's disappointing. And then a month or two later, something exciting happens and you're back up again. And then it go back down, back up, back down. I mean, when we started playing, a lot of people kind of looked at us like when we got signed to Walregs. With Walregs, we had to pay for our own recording. So a lot of people say, "Why are you just an EP band?" So, well, that's not the case. If the case was when we signed to Walregs, we had to pay for our own recording. So the first album, our singer was 16. Then I had two guitar players that were 17, another guitar player that was 18, and I was 20. I was the oldest. So a lot of these dudes didn't work. So paying for a recording, even back in 1980, 86, cost money. So all we could afford, we pitched in, was EP, 4 songs. That's all we could afford to record. So next time around, we only have like 4 songs to record too, and that's because that's all we could pay for. So that's what happened with that, and
People
we
don't
couldn't.
realize that. People don't realize
Yeah,
that.
yeah, we couldn't afford it, So we're not an EP band. But then it's funny because jump to 2018, that Rise to Supremacy is a an EP also. So it's like, well, you're older now. You couldn't afford, to pay for that. No, the case there was we had the money, we just couldn't afford. We just didn't have enough songs. We didn't have enough material.
Hmm.
So it wasn't planned to put out anything new. I just asked Dave. I kind of threw it out there and asked him, "Hey, I got some new Annihilator music. Would you like to put it out?" And he was like, "Yeah, we'll put it out. Shit, yeah, I'll do it. You send it right away." And I'm like, "Oh shit, I don't have any music." I just was kind of testing to see if he would do it. So I went back to the guys and I said, "He said he put out new music." I said, "How long do you think it would take us to come up with 5 songs?" And it took us like a month and a half to come up with 5 songs and record it and send it to Dave. So that was the reason we had the money to record. We just didn't have enough material. And
To
this time around, well, I mean, we had enough material. I wanted more, but JD kind of talked me out of it a little bit by saying, everybody's attention span nowadays is really short. Kids just listen to stuff like, okay, they want it to be over after a couple of songs. So we made it where it was like, I want to say we made it where it was like 33 minutes.
yeah,
Yeah.
and that's
So
perfect.
but like I said, it's really hard to quit, even through the ups and downs and everything you do. It's just the love of music. That's what I like.
I can
That's my
relate to
favorite.
that. I've been doing fanzines since 1986.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm not out to make money because there's no money to be made.
No,
I'm just out to I just love music, man. I mean, I'm not in it to, yeah, I'll make like 50 t-shirts and I'll end up giving away half of them. And then I'll sell the other half. I mean, it's just like that. I'm not a,
that's just kind of how it is. I mean, if you're getting into underground metal, don't expect any riches.
yeah. Sorry about the dog barking in the background. So,
Oh, trust me, I have dogs too, so luckily they're not barking. Anyways, thank you so much, Alex, and good luck with the new record.
thank you, Mark, I'm sorry. I apologize for keep on, for switching times and days. And it was just, I mean, everyday life is really catches up sometimes. And it's just hard to coordinate stuff.
We made it work.
Yes, sir. And I appreciate your patience. Thank you.